Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm very pleased to have as my guest Balki Kodarapu. And let me tell you a little bit about Balki. He's a fractional CTO helping SaaS startups scale their products from 500K to 50 million without burning through their budgets or momentum. He's led 4 startups through hyper growth, raised over 150 million, delivered multiple exits, and built GenAI products that power Fortune 100 support teams. His specialty is stepping into chaos, engineering bottlenecks, missed ship dates, we hate those, org confusion, and turning it into clarity, speed, and real business results. Over the years, he's worn every engineering hat and EM director, coach, and strategic executive. He is obsessed with high performance teams, usage-based pricing, and shipping products that actually drive revenue. He also believes that a leader's job is to invest in people. Amen to that. So he pushes every team he works with to carve out 15 plus hours a week for learning, reflection, and growth. Outside of work, Balki's mentors engineers, walks his golden retriever. I love golden retrievers. And his golden retriever's name's Finn. Maybe Finn will visit us during this podcast. And he devours podcasts like Reckless and the Startup CTO. Today, we're going to talk about something that when you think tech, you may not think this, but as someone who does public speaking as part of my expertise, this is a good story. The art of storytelling in tech leadership. Oh, yes, you out there. It's not about stats. It's not all about numbers and figures. You got to reach people with your stories. So please join me in bringing my guest forward, Balki Kodarapu. Oh, I'm looking forward to this one, Balki.
Hi, Vicki. Thank you so much, first for inviting me and that great introduction. I'm blushing already.
So before we get into really the meat of the matter, I always ask 2 questions to kind of warm you up here. Sometimes I think they're easy questions, and sometimes you prove me wrong. The first question is usually the one, where do you call home? Where do you live right now?
Today, I happen to be at my home office. So I'm based out of Portland, Oregon in the Pacific Northwest. The beautiful Oregon coast is about an hour away from here. We don't spend as much time, but we dream of going there when it's sunny and nice.
Yeah, well, Portland is kind of like Erie, Pennsylvania. You got to take the sun when you get it.
Exactly, yes.
For sure. All right. And the second question is, I talked about all the things you're doing today, but I love for you to always share your journey. Just demonstrating that there were those roadblocks, those moments of of not feeling adequate or enough. But each of those challenges really helps to determine who you are and, more importantly, why you do what you do. So please share a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, so maybe I'll focus on one of the pivots in my career journey, right? So I've been in the industry for 20 plus years. Half of that has been as an individual contributor, writing code as an engineer. The remaining half has been more as a leader, helping other engineers and companies. Two major pivots in my professional journey have been when I was an individual contributor. I was wanting to grow in the corporate world. So, like manager, director, VP, executive. So, I intentionally went to a business school, an executive MBA sponsored by my company, hoping that I would turn into that growing executive in a large corporation, but the fate had other plans. I went through the program, took all the courses, but the last course was about entrepreneurship. So that was not on my future, in my future plans at all, until I did that one course. And I was smitten by the appeal of being an entrepreneur. So much to my partners and my families and my companies wishes, at the end of that program, I decided to pursue an entrepreneurship as my career. But long story short, that's not the actual pivot I wanted to talk about. So I did that. I spent a year and a half building a startup, but I realized I'm still an engineer at heart. And the combination of entrepreneurship and being an engineer is what has become my calling since then in the last 10 years. So where they intersected is in startups and engineering leadership in startups. So I did that for almost 10 years. So I worked at different startups, raised a lot of money, got good exits for my founders over the last 10 years. The pivot I wanted to share here, though, is about my shift from claiming allegiance to a single startup, which is what I did for 10 years, and utilizing that experience and expertise that I built doing that as a fractional CTO. So over 2 years ago, I decided to become a fractional CTO. What that means and why I did that is because I realized, looking back, I didn't have not 10,000 or 20,000 hours of expertise to call myself an expert. It felt more like 50,000 hours of work helping startups. And I gathered so much wisdom and knowledge and experience. I could do that for multiple startups at the same time. And that's the pivot I'm proud of 2 years later.
Yeah, basically you could do it in your sleep, right? And
You
sometimes you do it.
Exactly.
Those long hours, yeah, for sure. It's so true that when you do something that you love, it never feels like work. Time flies by and you don't even realize, people. I'm a Toastmaster and I'm in 5 clubs, and one of the clubs meets at 6:30 a.m. my time. It's in Europe, and people think, why would you do that? But I love the growth that I see in the people that I work with there, that I mentor there. And it never feels like, I might be a little groggy for the first 5 minutes, but then you just get all this energy and enthusiasm. And while it may be their lunch hour, for me, it's my morning coffee, if you will.
Nice.
So,
How long have you
sure.
been in Toastmasters, Vicky?
28 years.
Oh my God, yeah. So similar to my experience as a CTO, right? So you've seen it all.
Yeah.
It helped a lot of
Yes,
people.
for sure. And, I retired from UPS as a project manager and a project lead. And that's why and a lot of my projects were tech projects. But because I work so much on the soft skills side of things, it made my leadership so much more impactful and effective. And that's why I love that we're going to be talking about storytelling, because my mentor at UPS was the past CIO. And what I loved about his presentations that made them so engaging is he always had stories. And so many times, and those of you that have corporate experience, how many meetings have we gone to where they just give you slide after slide of bullet points, and nothing connects you to the mission or to the vision? It's not until you get someone that's brave enough to talk about when or talk about how, and let themselves share a story that you remember, and that makes impact. So you led engineering at startups across multiple stages. What are the inflection points where most teams break down, and how do you prevent that? And how does that tie to storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, the storytelling angle is relatively straightforward. Maybe as we talk through, we'll have some discoveries. So as I mentioned, I've spent 10 plus years in startups. So that experience itself is a rich set of stories.
Yes.
Along with that, I'm a voracious learner. So about 7 years ago, I discovered the value of cohorts and mentors. So ever since then, I've been like, even if the company that I work for doesn't pay for it, I pay to become a part of masterminds and cohorts. And the ROI has been like priceless on those. So, for example, today I'm part of 4 different cohorts of either peers or the people I aspire to be. And I'm sharing that because that is another rich source of stories, right? So it's not just my own stories, but it's also stories of the peers and mentors that I trust and can bring the stories back to the clients I help today. Back to your question, though, in terms of inflection point for teams, it's interesting. So what worked until now doesn't work for tomorrow, and it's even more true for startups, right? So startups change so dramatically from stage to stage, especially if they're growing and if they find a market fit, right? So, so for example, most companies I help, it's either the founder has figured out a way to build a product and get traction, which is always suboptimal, right? So almost by definition, what they built is suboptimal from a craft perspective, but optimal from a product and commercialization perspective. So when we start to build a team around that, it does not fit like a glove. So engineers want it to be perfect, but to get to a perfect state, it means that you have to undo something that you have built. So there's a natural friction between the founder or the early engineers and the breed of engineers that come next. It is one of the most make it or break it stages of every startup's journey. It's natural for you to go the other end of the spectrum and say, let's rewrite everything in the most beautiful, infinitely scalable way. And that's where I bring stories from my past. Anytime I've seen somebody aspire to do that, 100% of the time they fail.
Yeah.
For us experienced folks, it's like, oh yeah, that's so obvious, but it's not in the moment of things, right? We'll say, oh yeah, this will take 6 weeks or 2 months to rewrite everything perfectly. It'll take 10 times more than that, and you'll run out of money and traction in the meanwhile. But on the other side of the coin, you cannot just keep building. Like keep throwing spaghetti at the wall, even as you see traction from the market. So there's another pivotal point when you start to raise money, or when you go to more enterprise clients. They value stability and security more than the features themselves, communication. So my default mode of operation is keep operating like a startup, do what is needed in a scrappy way, but never take your eyes off of the future. So think 1 to 3 stages ahead. Like, when we get to a 10x customers, what happens when we get to 100x customers? You have to think about it with a steady hand without actually taking some action, right? So that's the part where I teach both the founders and the engineers how to do that. Do this with a steady hand, without taking actual action, right? So you have to think about the beautiful future state without actually baking all of that goodness into your product and wasting valuable time and money. So these are some inflection points I see over and over. I probably saw that like 15 times. And the most successful companies can operate with a steady hand with what is needed today and tomorrow, but with a keen eye on what will come a year or 2 years in the future.
I think that's one of the things I loved and I hated about leading projects. As I said, a lot of my projects were technology based or new ideas. And I loved the idea that you will learn from your failures. So that means that you do want to just, what's this first iteration of it, so we can learn from it. And then you have to manage on the other side, the stakeholders, the other leaders, the people that are writing the checks, if you will, so that they understand that, no, we're not perfect. We're not going to be perfect, but this is the first step so that we can learn to get to the optimal. But I think, for me, always having that perfect project or that perfect outcome never was a reality. Because as soon as you got it to where it should be perfect, technology changed, the audience changed, or would change, and it was no longer ideal for that group. So
exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, even somebody like you mentioned UPS, right? Somebody that large, a Fortune 50 or even a Fortune 20 company, I'm thinking, with unlimited money supply, even there, I don't think that's a reality that you could build something forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned failures, right? So one of my first failures was exactly that. As an engineer, when I first became a manager, I trusted my fellow engineers almost blindly, like that we could rewrite our core technology in the most beautiful way if we leave them alone and the customers didn't bother them, right? So that literally cost me my job. And that was the best lesson life lesson and professional lesson I could learn. And from that day forward, I will never endorse a project that's this, beautiful, leave us alone for 6 months and we will make this grand reveal of the world's best project. That does not exist. That does not happen in the real world.
Yeah. And so that's kind of aligns with my next question. As this fractional CTO, you drop into high growth chaos and quickly get moving. And what's your playbook for making impact, though, in that first 30 to 90 days? As I was just mentioning before, it really does help that you give them something, some iteration of what you're doing so they have small wins. To me, small wins really help keep things flowing.
Yeah. 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 If you were to claim full allegiance and join a company full time, you have a longer runway, right? At least in theory. Like when I was joining full time companies, I used to give myself 90 days to show some traction, those early wins. But as a fractional CTO, I don't have that luxury. And honestly, I don't think it's fair to the companies that I take 90 days to quote unquote learn. So I invest heavily before even I take on a paid part of my engagement. For example, I start a couple weeks before I start my engagement officially. I have, in fact, I've built a tool to understand where the gaps are with their
nice.
with the engineering architecture, which is my sweet spot. So I go in and identify the gaps and blind spots within the architecture of a team, of a company and product, and then surface where they should invest, right? So I've done it enough times that I built a tool. I spend either with the founder, if they're technical enough, or their current engineers/team to go through like an hour and a half to 2 hours exercise in uncovering where the gaps are. And then we'll spend another hour to 2 hours identifying where is the right time to, where's the right place to invest our limited resources. So I do all of that before I start the engagement, so we can start hit the ground running when my engagement officially starts. So nothing earth-shattering, but I've done it enough times that I've formalized this onboarding process. And if you have any technical-minded audience, folks in your audience, one of the most common things I advocate to invest in is in automated testing. So the engineers and the founders tend to defer that for too long, and it gets very expensive to do it later. So I advocate them to invest in that. And the good thing in the modern Gen AI world is it's much easier and faster to do that. So you don't have to lose your shirt investing in automated testing.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'm finding AI saves me hours and hours and hours of time. So it to me, when I started working in the late 70s, there were no computers, and so I was there, and I started as a secretary in an accounting firm, and I sucked at typing. So when they talked about this thing that could type without, and you could erase what was wrong, I raised my hand immediately to learn. And, that was exciting times. And so a lot of the reason I got into project management at UPS was because I was doing things that were new and interesting. So to me, AI is that time again where, we don't know everything. We have skeptics all around us, but the more you learn, the more you embrace it, I think the more fun your job can become.
Yeah. In my field, the natural thing we look at is how can it write the code, the AI write the code, right? So I think it's just a start. It's just baseline. And again, my expertise has been incorporating AI into all aspects of product and technology development. And it's been a very humbling but exciting journey for me, right? So this has been my bread and butter as an engineering leader. I'm the expert, but now I have to grudgingly or excitedly bring on my Gen AI as a partner.
So when we talk about leadership and storytelling, and sometimes in tech world, especially tech and finance, I see so often, or I've seen so often, where we promote people to leadership because they're good at Excel or they're good at code, and they don't look to the fact that a lot of those two skill sets have you by yourself doing things. And now, as a leader, you have to be that person that has those soft skills that can reach people, inspire people, motivate people, persuade people to be really overcoming challenges that seem impossible. So, how do you first identify potential leaders in a team? And second, how do you then mold them, train them to be those storyteller, those leaders that will make an impact?
Yeah, I mean, the world is changing. So 2 years ago, I would say, as a leader, your craft is the least important thing, right? So, but today, the craft is also important. So by craft, I mean your engineering coding skills. So that may be slightly counterintuitive or maybe controversial to what you're saying, but at least in the engineering field, you could learn either skills. Like if you have one, the other skill is learnable. Maybe I'll not confuse your
Oh,
audience
no.
and ask.
No, I mean, that's perfectly, but and it's true. Like the question sometimes come up, are leaders made or born? And I believe they're made.
Yeah.
So therefore, I believe you can learn, develop to being a great leader. The only thing you can't change in either as a great engineer or a great leader is your character and your core values, because those sometimes could be roadblocks to being either of those things, a great engineer or a great leader.
Yeah, totally. So to answer your question more directly, so I see, this is an important aspect of what I do as an engineering leader, even in the fractional roles, is look at the two sides of the coin. I call them the craft and the context, right? So the way I see it is when you start early part of your career, craft is everything. You're learning, you're executing. So let's say you're straight out of college. So I recommend that even like defer your context building skills for a little bit, like 2-3 years. Focus everything on building your skill set, and that's the craft, right? But as you start to grow in your career, I recommend like which direction they want to go to start bringing in that context, and within that context is so many elements, right? So one, how do you influence, how do you encourage, how do you lead without influence, how do you lead with the title, your skills with documentation, how do you communicate upwards, how do you communicate downwards, and even more importantly, like this is the missing skill for many engineers, is thinking about the market.
Yeah.
For the longest time, we were okay with engineers being great craft as long as they're like good with their craft, and then even with their teammates, that was enough. But I've always argued that's just not enough. There's a more important element of understanding the market and adapting to the market needs, and that's like the customer side of things, right? Today, I believe that's the most important element of the context, that you have to build what the market wants and what's the market willing to pay for. It's in the past, your salespeople or marketing people or even the product managers used to take care of that. I argue that they might do some of the work, but it's as an engineer, as a well-rounded engineer, it's a key part of your job to understand the market as well.
Yeah, and we talked about earlier how things change all the time. And so if, say, a salesperson or a business development person comes up and is talking with the clients and they're hearing these are the things that the clients want, but maybe your technology team, is not, the product or the service is not at that level, and there are different stages that you have to get to go through that level. So if you as that engineer stay in tune with what the customer is asking, being technology minded, thinking, well, I know we can't be there today, but let's start putting the stepping stones in place, that makes you so much more of an asset to that company.
I love that. Yeah. So again, like I use the steady hand analogy, right? So being like the customer will ask for the moon, the salespeople will
That's
ask for the
right.
moon. Like without losing sleep, what can you build today, and paint the picture of what is possible, right? So I'll admit I'm not good at it even today, but I'm capable of teaching others as well as learning over time, right? It does not come naturally to me as an engineer to do what is needed today and then paint a picture of how we'll get there.
You and I need to work with your customers together so we can build that vision.
Exactly. I love that.
Oh my goodness. So I guess one final question. Time has flown by, as I knew it would. This is just such a great topic. You're deeply hands-on with hiring. And so how do you attract top engineer talent when your startup doesn't have a brand recognition yet? And that's where I think the storytelling has to come into play.
Yeah. So the more obvious answer is when I join a company as a fractional or in the past as a full-time CTO, I need to fully trust and love that product and company, right? So that's the beginning stage. Without that, I cannot sell it to others. So several years ago, what I started doing is, as soon as I joined and I start to make my first hire, I would prepare a simple deck of 5 things I love working here. So it would be like all the angles an engineer and an employee would find it attractive, right from here's a special piece of technology we use, here is the IP we have, here is the product features our customers love, and sometimes it's here's the money we have in the bank even, right? So
yes, sometimes that's helpful.
That's important. So I used to prepare that, and I have almost 100% acceptance rate when I do that, right? So I present as to why I joined this company in a storytelling format, and it's appealing to engineers. Like they trust my trust, and almost 100% of the time they join. So it starts with me first trusting and endorsing the company. Then the second part is easy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Just one follow-on question with that. So you've got them. How do you keep them?
Why do we need to keep engineers? We have AI now. No, I'm just teasing. um, it's it's like giving them what they want to achieve, right? So I call it. There's a term called career ladder. So it's like that. So they can grow in a structured format. I call it a career jungle gym because it's not a straight path. It's not a ladder. No. So for an early, again, like a early career engineer, it's too confusing when I tell them like you could do all these things. So again, it's adapting to their needs. For them in the initial stages, if they're, let's say, a junior software engineer, showing them the path for how to get to a mid-level engineer or senior engineer, I think I also agree that that should be their path until they have honed their craft. But somebody who's senior, then the world opens up. They could go into a different department altogether. They could grow into leadership within the craft, like within engineering. They could go become an entrepreneur of their own, like I tried to do it, right? So showing them sometimes 80% of the time they could grow within the department that they're in, or outside the department but within the company. But sometimes it's outside the company or in their own journey, but being authentic and like adapting to what their growth stage is and what they want to do is the best way to keep them. And sometimes keeping them means keeping that relationship, but outside the company.
One of the jobs that I had for almost, I guess, 7, 8 years was with a fast food company. And I was a operations and then a construction coordinator. And I loved that the company recognized that understanding the customer piece of it. And so all of the salespeople had to spend 2 to 3 weeks in operations, working face to face with the customer. And anyone that was in any other position in the company had to spend 1 week in a store. And I always found that that was really helpful. And even when I was at UPS, after a little thing we had called a strike, I spent 2.5 months teaching loading and unloading. Now, granted, I was a supervisor and I did computer work and analysis and all that other stuff, plus all the people skills. And it was very enlightening and informative, and I think made me a better leader by going in and putting my shoes in the place of those people that I was leading. And I think, any business you have, whether it's only has 5 people as the team, there is the thing about being in your own lane, but I think it's so important for that leader to understand everybody's lane.
Yeah, exactly. And to the previous point, let them explore other lanes, right? Not feel threatened, or you're not losing them. The best case scenario, they stay in the company and we get to derive the value of their skills and knowledge. But in some cases, the best thing might be to let them go. And more than once, they came back when we did what's best for them.
Yeah. We used to do a thing called special assignment the first 10 years that I was there. And we got away from it. And I think that was probably a mistake because, as you said, it was not getting a new person off the street, but it was allowing that individual to see a different side of the business, to bring the gifts, the talents that they had to that different side of the business, but to learn more. And I think I probably had 14 different jobs in my 28 years, 27 years at UPS. But when I was a project manager, all of that made such a huge difference because I could listen to and understand and also talk the lingo to those other groups. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm jealous of large companies. I didn't work in large companies in the last 10 years, but that's an underrated, huge benefit, right? So to be able to go do different things. Some companies naturally help people do that, but even if they don't, you could take the initiative and go explore, right? So it's possible inside huge companies to do that. So I try to emulate that in startups as well. It is possible. Like, it's not easy, but it's possible if there's intention.
Yeah, for sure. Well, time has flown by, and I'm sure that there's those out in the audience that would love to chat a little further with you. As always, I have a slide with Balki's contact information. If you're just listening, everything will be on my YouTube channel, Vicki Nethling. So if you haven't done so, please do subscribe. But if you have, thank you for subscribing. And also on my findyourleadershipconfidence.com website. Well, he made it easy for you. You can just go to LinkedIn and just search for Balki, Balki. There, you can find all of the different ways to connect. And I'll let Balki talk to you a little bit about what he has out there on LinkedIn, how often he puts information out, so that you can definitely DM him there. Balki.
Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, I spend quite a bit of time on LinkedIn, and only because it's such a joy for me. I find so much knowledge myself by being intentionally spending time on LinkedIn that I like to give back. For example, I proudly claim that if somebody wants to be like if a founder cannot afford or doesn't want to hire a fractional CTO, if they read my post, they could be their own CTO, their own company CTO. So I'm an open book there. So 80% of my posts about being a good engineering leader, but I do spend time writing about my personal life, about my golden retriever Finn, my kids, etc. So you can see the personal side of things as well,
Awesome.
not just this nerd engineer.
Oh, well, we all have a little nerd in us, I think, especially. Balki, thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts, your insights, and your experiences with the audience and myself. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicky.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicky Nettling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicky Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.